Welcome to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and today I'm going to be doing another indie horror spotlight. I have Brandon Reines with us here today. He is the director of, they're on Tubi right now, Grotesque, as well as I Am Haunted. So it's definitely streaming on Tubi. And guess what? The sequel to the both of them are actually just finished. I Am Haunted and Grotesque 2 is 80% into production. Brandon, welcome to the horror room, my friend.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, first off, for any of our fans who haven't seen, let's talk about Grotesque first. Any of our fans who haven't seen Grotesque, tell us a little bit about it.
It's a horror comedy, definitely horror comedy, and it's about a young lady named Mildred Moyer, played by Elizabeth Chamberlain, who was born with an insanely long nose, and she's been ridiculed her whole life and bullied for it. Finally, one day she, decides to get plastic surgery. But of course, she's just a young intern, doesn't have a lot of money. She can only afford to go to this cheap plastic surgeon who works out of a strip club basement. And I won't tell you what happens. You got to watch it. But let's just say it gets botched, and she winds up looking even worse than before. And she finally snaps, and then unleashes vengeance on anyone who has ever wronged her in any way.
Now, I've seen the first Grotesque. Now, I have a question. I was watching this movie and I was like, oh, this seems like something. Did you get any inspiration from the Trauma movies?
Not directly, but I am a fan of them. So it has kind of inspired me in some way, but I don't think I purposely took anything from it. But like Toxic Avenger, like I love that movie. I like a lot of the Trauma stuff. So that's always been an inspiration for everything I do. So you can see some of that influence in there, I'm sure.
Yeah, I saw a couple of hints in there. I was like, oh, I wonder if he was a Trauma fan, because I definitely see some hints of Trauma type movies.
There's some things there's some kind of little hints I put in there to other movies purposely, and there's other ones that I must have done accidentally, because all the time people are like, hey, I noticed that one part is like this movie, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even do that on purpose. But there's those little Easter eggs in there that will remind you of certain things.
So Mildred is back.
Mildred is back in Grotesque Part 2. We're about probably 80% finished filming. It'll be done this month and next week or two. And it's gonna be wild. I hope it's better than the first. It's kind of it was the first time doing a sequel, so all of a sudden people aren't judging it on its own. They're kind of judging it against the first one. So I've never really had to deal with that before. So we got fans of the first one, and I don't know if they're going to like it. It's a little bit different, but it's a lot of the same. So I think people will like it. I know the people in the cast and crew, like as soon as they read the first draft of the script, they were like, oh my God, like this is so good. It's way better than the first. And I had no problem convincing people to do it. So if fans of the first movie are any along the same lines, I think they're going to enjoy it.
Awesome. Now, the original, did you get a lot of women horror fans that were into that movie? Because I could see women definitely being into, men as well, but I could definitely see women definitely.
Yeah, I would say it's like a lot of people that just reach out to me. I'd say it's a lot of women. I don't know why that is. Maybe just because it's a female character, but the movie's made. It's not really geared towards anyone, but it's. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of women do love it. Maybe just because Mildred's definitely not. I wouldn't say she's a hero. What she does is not good for real life, but there's something about it. I think that you kind of want to cheer for her. You just can't help but cheer for her, because I think there's a part of her and all of us that just wants to get vengeance on people just for making you mad, and but you have to live in the real world, and you can't just attack someone for saying the slightest thing, so it kind of takes that to the level of absurdity. But I know a lot of people are just like, go Mildred, and it's whether that's right or wrong, it definitely makes the movie entertaining.
Now, making a sequel, did you think to yourself, well, where can I take this after the ending of the first one?
Yeah, that was definitely, especially when it came to just all the kills in it, because we had insane number of kills in the first one. So now it's like, okay, it's like we've used up every possible way of murdering someone, and it's like now we got to think of like 30 more. So, and once you start thinking about it, it's like, okay, they start coming to you, and it's like, yeah, actually, these are pretty cool. And so, it was. I thought part of the problem too was like her story. It seems like it wraps up at the end of the first one. You know,
It does.
she's back to normal and peaceful. Everything's good, and she's with her love interest. So like, how do we restart things? Like, what reason
Exactly.
do we have? And that was kind of the hardest part with the script. You know, I had all these ideas for kills and cool stuff that could happen, but it's what's her story? It is Mildred's
What's the
story.
motive? Yeah.
So we found something, and I think it works very well.
Okay. Does it involve her nose coming back or no?
No, it's
Okay.
basically I'll try to like tell you without spoiling too
Yeah.
much,
Yes.
but she basically is kind of in a depression, and she's watching TV late at night and sees an ad for a kind of one of those, like, I don't know if they're called like super churches, but one of those really scammy TV preachers.
Mm-hmm.
And they end up inviting her to this church, and she kind of gets swept up in it, without realizing that they're evil people that are taking advantage of everyone. So eventually, when she finds out that this organization has been lying to her and everyone else, she snaps and goes on a rampage again.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice, nice. And you're not kidding at all. Even in the first one, the different objects you were using to kill people, everything from bowling balls to axes to chainsaws. I mean, there was a lot of different variety of items she was using to golf
Yeah.
clubs. I mean,
It's funny because it got to the point where we had a hard time explaining where the hell she got all this stuff.
yeah,
So
no,
we finally decided it's like, okay, she's just lucky. She just finds the chainsaw laying there. Oh, hey, there's an axe against that tree. There's a fishing rod laying on the ground. And uh, we kind of continue that into the next one. It's like she's just kind of, there's kind of like a subtle theme to it where it's like if you're on the right path in life, like good things will come to you. There's kind of that. So when she's on her like doing her killing spree, it's like that's what she's supposed to be doing in life, and like the universe just puts tools in front of her for whatever she needs, and so she just magically has something.
okay. Now explain one scene to me from the first one. There's a big. She's in the beach, and a big muscle guy was like catcalling her. Where did the strap on come from? Like, you just
that was
decided to toss that in?
that was one of the things where she just kind of carries around the oddest things. We we shot a part, like there was like a shot we got of her as she was walking up to him where she's putting it on and strapping it on,
Uh-huh.
but it just didn't cut together as nicely. It looked better when it's just like he looks down and oh my god, it's there, and it's like where the F did that come from? But yeah, that's just kind of one of those things that it's like it's best just not to question it.
Just go with the flow.
She just can find things, whatever she needs.
Now, do we have a release date for Grotesque Part 2?
It's honestly, it's still too early to say. Like, I would love it to be like as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, like this movie, honestly, it's like the biggest shoot we've ever done, the most expensive movie. Um, we're going to be right out of money, so we have to do another crowdfunding campaign in order to do post production. And it depends on how much we raise, how quickly we raise it, if it all like works out perfectly. Like we've been shooting since the beginning of June, kind of sporadically.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been editing on the days off. So the movie's probably getting close to being rough cut of editing so far. So by the time we shoot our last day, it'll be almost done. So if we could launch a crowdfunding campaign, get the money, get the score and all that stuff done, sound mix and all that quickly, it could be by the end of the year. But
Awesome.
I'm prepared for the situation that it might just be hard as it always is to raise money, and then we'll have to push it to spring. And there's also just the fact that I live up here in Canada, and in the winter it's insanely cold, and it kind of sucks having a big movie premiere when it's just the dead of winter. I kind of like to do it when it's nice weather out, but I would hate to have to wait till April or May if I'm sitting on a finished movie.
Yeah.
So it's one of the things we'll decide with the team and kind of see what we're thinking. But basically, the sooner we can get it out there and people can see it, it's only going to be better. So, but right now it's sometime between the end of October and the end of next summer. So
Awesome. I had the pleasure of interviewing Jamie Hill,
oh yeah,
and and she she had the Grotesque 2 post in the background and everything, and she said that everything's gonna be ×2 in the second one.
Yeah, it gets a little crazy.
Yeah. So another movie you just wrapped up with is the sequel to the found footage sequel to I Am Haunted. So for that's, by the way, the first one is streaming on TV. Check that out. Now tell us a little bit about I Am Haunted.
Yeah, it was Elizabeth Chamberlain, who is the star of Grotesque, that she plays Mildred. We were shooting something, and we kind of came up with this idea of doing a found footage type thing. And basically, the story is that her character's apartment, she thinks it's haunted, so she starts doing kind of like a daily video blog and videotaping all this weird stuff happens to her. And we filmed a lot of episodes, and we kind of released them in real time, kind of like one a day over several months, kind of as things got, it was all scripted, but we pretended it was real. And it wasn't very popular on YouTube, and you wouldn't get that many views. But after we released Grotesque, I was like, you know what? Like, I have all this footage. Like, I wonder if I could just compile it into a movie. So all together, all the episodes, it's like 2 hours and 45 minutes long, too long for a movie. So I chopped it down to an hour and a half. So it's kind of a completely different experience. And like, I'm not a big found footage fan. I've just never, something I didn't care for. It was more of just a fun side project we did. So I released it. I didn't think much of it. It was like, yeah, here it is. And for some reason, it's actually quite popular. There's just like getting a lot of people messaging me about it. We have some fans, and a lot of Elizabeth's fans are, watching it all the time. And I was like, well, that's kind of odd. It was the last thing I expected to be popular. So I was like, you know what? Let's do a second one. So we had a bit of a 2-week break that ended yesterday. I guess ended today, from Grotesque 2. So I wrote a script, and we spent the last 8 days shooting I'm Haunted 2. Nice. Which in hindsight I probably shouldn't have done, because I'm just exhausted now, because
I bet
we were like shooting one movie, and then I'm like, okay, now we got a week and a bit off, so let's shoot another movie before jumping back into Grotesque 2. And now I'm like, oh no, it turned out to be a lot more work than I thought, but we got it done. And I'm actually planning the third one, I'm Haunted 3, probably shooting in October. I'm working on that script now. I just want, kind of strike while the iron's hot. If there's people that like it and want it, it's like, I'll put them out there, and then that'll generate some money that we can put towards finishing Grotesque 2, and, kind of keep the whole ball rolling.
Now, Grotesque 2, jumping back to that. So there will be a part 3 to I Am Haunted. Now, Grotesque 2, will this be the end of the series, or?
It could go either way. We are actively discussing part 3. It's kind of, the story is taking shape. We've just been kind of discussing it as we go, and it's becoming a very real possibility. So I'd say there's a very good chance, I think 2025 we would start shooting, because next summer we have something different planned. But as you'll see, this part 2 kind of ends on a cliffhanger. So I'm really, really hoping we can do a third one to explain what happens. Of course, it depends on a lot of things, but like, our intention is definitely to do a part 3, and we already have like a story kind of nailed down for it.
Awesome. Now, right now, I understand you're a big comic guy as well.
I don't know if it's a big comic guy, but I've been into comics. I read comics, so I'd say I'm a medium comic guy.
Okay. DC or Marvel?
Ooh, if I had to pick, I'd say DC.
DC?
Okay. Yeah.
Are you a fan of the DC movies? Are you excited?
I hate to say it, but like, I'm kind of superheroed out.
Me too.
I used to love them so much. I look forward to them, and it was a big part of my childhood. And then it's just like they're just cranking them out, and they're kind of all the same. And I'm like, I hate it. I just stopped caring, and I'm actually more interested in other things. And it's kind of disappointing. I mean, there's talented people involved. Part of me wishes they would just stop making them for like 10, 15 years, let people kind of forget, and then start again anew. Because now it's like they're just cranking the same thing out faster and faster and faster, and it's just too much. And yeah.
It used to be a huge event, like anytime a Marvel movie. So yeah. When I grew up, Marvel movies weren't a thing. Like, and then like it wasn't until like the first X-Men movie came out when I was in high school. I'm about to finish high school, and I was like, oh my god, they're making Spider-Man, X-Men into and like it was a big event anytime a Marvel movie came out, and people myself would rush to the movie theaters to see it. I haven't seen a Marvel movie in the movie theaters in years.
Yeah.
Like I mean, definitely since COVID, I've been to movie theaters a lot, but not to see a Marvel movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of, yeah. I used to, the new Spider-Man's coming out. This is going to be great. The new Hulk's coming out,
Yep.
and now it's like time just flies by. I missed the last 5 of them. There's movies out that I didn't even know. It's like I've lost track of how many Spider-Mans are out, and it's just kind of like, I don't know, they're making. It's like I haven't even got a chance to catch up, but now it ties into all the Avengers movies, and they tie into the Captain America movies, and I don't know what to watch first, and it's just like, you know what, like. Yeah.
And apparently, apparently, all of the TV shows on Disney Marvel movies, I mean, the Marvel TV shows tie into the movies. So, like, if you don't watch the TV shows, you miss something in the movies. And I'm like, I don't have time for all that.
It shouldn't be like a full-time job, like an 8-hour-a-day investment to watch it, right? It's like 2 hours every 2 years. So that's like,
I'm like, whoever's keeping up with all that has no life at all or something. They must really love Marvel, like, because I have no time to keep up with She-Hulk and Loki or any of that stuff. I really don't.
Like, I forgot. Yeah, I even forgot about those. Like, there's even more than that. Like,
I haven't seen it,
and that's not even including DC. That's only Marvel. There's like DC movies, and now they're rebooting their whole universe because it was losing money, and it's probably just going to make the problem worse. And I don't know how to solve the problem, but I think there's just kind of like a lack of creativity, and it's kind of funny because the writers and actors are striking, and they're worried about AI taking over, and part of me is like AI could take over, because do you really need humans to do just recycle all the same scripts you're already doing? It's the same thing over and over.
It's a bunch of CGI all over the place. I mean,
and I heard I can't confirm it's true, but I heard even like with Marvel movies, like the actual director only directs the scenes where like the characters are talking. All the action is done is just pieced together by a different team. So they just like create all these pieces and then put them all together, throw it out there, but it's not like a person's vision where like, Quentin Tarantino will be like, this is his movie. It's just kind of like the corporation puts all these little pieces together, and it's like, and then I think people are just kind of getting sick, and like Blue Beetle, I'm sure it's a decent movie, but it's just like it's just losing money. It's losing money because it's like DC's version of Iron Man, and it's like, is it really that different? And then some indie movie will come out of nowhere, made for cheap, and all of a sudden everyone's excited about it because they're trying something new, something different.
Something new. It's almost like The Walking Dead. Like The Walking Dead has like 5 like spinoffs going on right now I'm like, I've been out of The Walking Dead for like 5 years. Like, and I'm like, well, so who are they making these spinoff shows for? Are people really into The Walking Dead?
Yeah, I have a hard time, because the thing with like streaming is that like, in a movie theater, like with the box office, they could say like, we sold this many tickets, we made this much money. With streaming, they keep all that secret. So you don't know if is anyone actually watching this, or they're just putting it out there into the void and no one's watching. Because the streamers, that's another thing that writers are striking over, is the streamers are so secretive. Even like with Tubi, with my movies, like they'll give me money, but I have no idea how many people watch the movie. It's like, is it like 100, 1 million? Like, I figure it must be a lot, but they just don't know. So it's like, they're making all these shows, but our Netflix or whoever is like showing it, it's like, is it popular? Like, I don't think that information's out there. Like, maybe it is, but it's just such a weird thing that I've wondered that too. It's like, I got out of Walking Dead after season 3 or maybe, and it's like, I didn't even know it was still on, but there's like spinoffs, and
it's like 5 spinoffs, but like, here's the thing too. Like, I think what killed like TV shows for me, I liked that, like, for instance, Game of Thrones. It came on HBO. It came on Sunday nights at 9:00. You had to be there, watch it Sunday. Like, it was an event to like sit down and watch Game of Thrones at 9:00 on a Sunday. And then you just didn't get on social media the next day if you missed it, because everybody's talking about it. Now everything's streaming, so like you can just knock it all out in one day. And like, I don't know, it's just, that's nice, but like, to me, like, I like that event. I like that, looking forward to Sunday evening and watching the new episode of Walking Dead or Game of Thrones or The Wire, any of those great shows.
Yeah, I 100% agree because in a way it kind of like cheapens entertainment. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
movie or a TV show. It's like people put a lot of hard work into it. Like it is it's not just content. It's like it's some people put effort into it. So it's like it should be somewhat of an event, even a small event for an indie movie, but it is an important thing when it's kind of like we'll just pump a bunch of stuff at you and you can just watch it in bed by yourself. Like it's not the same, right? It's like, yeah, I miss those days. Like
It's
I don't
killed
know if we could
TV
ever
for
go
me.
back to that, but yeah, like
I
just
can't
like
watch movie. I mean, I can't watch like TV series anymore because it's all right there, and then I just wind up watching too much of it, and I get bored of it, and I never finish it.
yeah.
Compared to once a week, my brain can take that.
Yeah, like, I watched Simpsons for probably 18 years, right?
Yeah.
Just once a week, I can handle that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like nonstop. Yeah, like, I think people just kind of get content overload. Everyone does that. You start watching a series and then, yeah, you just kind of forget about it and then you just never get around to it. I mean, everyone has unfinished things they're watching, whereas that didn't seem to exist. Like in the earlier days, you kind of, you just watch it every Sunday. You're not going to miss an episode. And even though it did kind of mess with your schedule a bit if you had stuff to do,
It did.
but part of the fun was like, it's like, hey man, the hockey game's on tonight. Like, come over, let's watch it, or you could watch at your house and then we'll call and talk about it. And whereas now it's like, have you watched this show? And it's like, no, I got like 12 other shows I'm supposed to watch first, and maybe I'll get around to it. But by that time, there's like 15 more shows you gotta watch. And it's like, there's
you gotta
too
watch
much stuff out there.
And you gotta watch the spinoff. You gotta watch the spinoff to even understand what the third season's about. Like,
Yeah.
It's just like it's too much.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know where to start. Like it's just, and part of me, I just kind of like going through my DVD collection and just watching like a movie, even a movie I've seen before.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like there's classic movies out there. I kind of get more enjoyment from them, or just like, or even watching even like newer horror movies. There's still good horror stuff being made.
There is.
And yeah, I'm honestly like I used to all be about the world building. Like even when I was a kid, it's like all my characters live in this universe and we're going to do this and that. There's going to be books and comic books. And now I'm almost thinking it's kind of more original to just kind of scrap that whole world building and you're on like 12 different kinds of media and just be like, this is my story. Like, this is Fight Club. It begins and ends here. Like, there's no spin-offs of various characters. There's no, character when he was a kid. There's no young Sheldon. And I kind of like that. It's just like, Mildred only exists within the Grotesque series, and that's it. I kind of want things to go that way, and
Before I hopped on this interview, I was WWE Payback is on. It's on Peacock, right? It's like the pay-per-view thing, and commercial came on. I love the John Wick movies, by the way, all of them. And a commercial came on for. They have the Continental. It's a John Wick spinoff TV show.
Oh, right.
And I'm like, oh, fucking don't do this to fucking John Wick. Please don't. Please don't do this, John Wick, sir. Leave that dead. It's over. As a good ending. Goodbye. Like, stop. Like, don't milk. But I think it's a Hollywood thing to milk. I had a conversation with somebody about this, about The Conjuring. They just milked the hell out of Conjuring. Like, I have no interest in seeing the Nun 2 or the next Annabelle. I have no interest in the next Conjuring. They just milked that for all of its creativity, and it's just junk.
And it does, I hate to say it, but it does it cheapens like the original one. Like John Wick is about John Wick. He's a cool guy. He's awesome. That's what made it good. Now that's like, well, now it's the Continental. Now John Wick is just a tiny piece in this larger world. It's like, I don't want him to be. I want him to be like, I want Indiana Jones to be the main guy of Indiana Jones. I don't want to have other characters that we follow off, right?
It's just too much.
Yeah, and I understand their point of view is you could, for the next 100 years, come up with 1,000 different assassin stories.
Mm-hmm. But that come from John Wick.
They come from John Wick. But the thing is, like, it has nothing to do with John Wick. They're just using that name because it's a popular movie. They could have called it like Assassin Hotel or something else, similar story, but they're not. They're just borrowing a famous movie title just to get those viewers coming in. And it's kind of like, yeah, they just milk. Like, they did the same thing with Star Wars, right? I remember, like, I loved Star Wars as a kid. Star Wars, those movies for decades were like a big deal. And now there's just Star Wars stuff coming out constantly, and And it's like even the fans are like, it's not so good anymore. And now Star Wars is just it's not a cool thing, right? It used to be like this is something that people love, and now it's like, yeah, they milk it to death, and then they comb over it looking for other little bits they could just milk, and it seems like from what I don't follow like the business side of it too much, but I
Mhm.
see a lot of things about Disney losing money and these things are
Yep.
struggling, and it's honestly part of me just like maybe I don't want them to go bankrupt, maybe that's too much, but I want things to change, and I want it to go back to where like things like even if they come out slower, like you don't need to crank out
I
so
like
many
getting
freaking things all the time.
I like getting one Marvel movie a year. That's how it was before, and it was amazing. Like you look for it every year to a new Marvel movie. Now, at the same time, that's a great concept, but like the Saw movies and some movies like that, I don't want a movie every year with those movies. Like, no, put some time, think about it. Just don't be pumping those movies out every year.
Yeah.
You get a bunch of garbage. All right, so I got a fun question for you.
Okay.
What iconic series, horror movie series, do you wish where there it's an end to it right now, and you hope that they don't bring back? You hope they don't reboot it. That you don't hope they give it a new spin. None
Oh,
of that.
the Godfather is one of them. It's always been a favorite my movie series, and I just know it's like someone's talking about that, and they wouldn't do a good job of it. Um, Predator is a one that they just kind of
Oh,
seem
you
to be
you
doing with
killed.
diminishing. I haven't seen the latest one, Prey, so I can't say. But
The
that's
Prey
another
was
one with
good.
diminishing
Prey was
returns.
good.
Yeah, I heard Prey was good, so I'm
Yeah,
looking
Prey was
forward
good.
to it. But there's Taxi Driver. It's one of my favorite movies, and I just read the last couple days that they're supposed to be, or they're talking about doing another one, and
Oh,
it's that is never. It's like I can maybe name like 2 or 3 movies where the remake has been better, and most of those were kind of like pre 1990. Like
yeah.
like it never worked. They make a new Total Recall, and it's like, does anyone ever talk about that with Colin Farrell?
No,
It's like people forget it exists,
nobody
but
was asking for that.
yeah, it's there's some of those movies that even though they might be dated, but dated is good. Like every movie kind of becomes a period piece after a while. And sometimes I like to go back and watch, like a Frankenstein movie from the 30s because it's so different than today, but there's still something cool about it. Or like watching Dirty Harry. It's so 70s. It's like I wasn't even alive then, but it like there's just something about it, just the way they dress, the way they talk, and it's like in movies, the movies had like a different temperament, right? It's just they're different. Now, if they remade Dirty Harry, they would make it like a 2023 movie,
And that's
which
not
would be
fun.
exactly like a John Wick movie, which would be, and it's like, no, just kind of leave things alone and maybe kind of come up with like John Wick is a fairly new franchise, like
Hmm?
10 years or so, like it's fairly new. So you can make new things that are mega popular that people love. They're just a big risk. So they're like, let's just make, either make a new one of a thing that they shouldn't have, like Indiana Jones, or just remake a thing that they shouldn't have. And it's just like it's kind of almost like making a mockery of just the film business. Like, you
It
know,
is.
I'd say like before the year 2000, like it was a big business. Like a movie was a very important thing. And it's like now they're kind of, they're calling it content. It's just things to look at. Crank it out, you watch it, you forget about it. It's like I can't even name like a movie that's won Best Picture for like I remember the ones from my early years, but can you name the ones in the last 6 years? Like I don't freaking know.
See, I used to was about 8 years ago, right? I stopped doing it about probably no, I stopped doing it about 6 years ago. I used to, because I'm a big movie buff. Any movies that were going to be nominated for Best Picture, right? I would go see them. I would go to some indie movie theater, like in Baltimore. There's a Charles Theater, and I would go and see every single one of the movies. And then I would, when the Oscars came around, I would pick. Half the time, the movie that I thought was the best movie didn't win. But no, I haven't seen any Best Picture movie, and it's been a long time because I have no interest in those movies. But it's weird because I mean, it's just like it's movie overload. There's
Yeah,
so many movies that are being tossed at you. You don't know what to look for. You don't know what is the quote unquote best movie or great movies anymore. And something I found out recently, I interviewed someone and I interviewed him about those awards. You see a lot of indie people, they got 20 awards from all these different. And I found out, I asked a question, I was like, I've seen some crappy movies and they have like a bunch of these awards. And he told me that a lot of those awards are BS. You just buy into them and your small time first year award things, and most people don't even know about them. And it's you and some other guy, so you got a 50-50 chance of winning. And some of them you just pay for them.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's why there's so many bad movies with all of these awards.
Yeah, I like in my earlier days, I kind of fell for some of those, right? I'd pay the
Me
fee
too.
and then I'd get oh, you are now a semifinalist or whatever. Gets that same email. So there are some out there that are flat out scams. Like if you pay the fee, you pay your $30 or whatever, you'll get a thing saying you won an award for something because they want people to keep, they'll have thousands of people friggin' sending in their $30 and it's like, hey, I won an award. I could put it on my thing. It's like you could just make up your own festival and say you won best picture. Like I pretty much very rarely to never enter contests like that. And like I have won a bunch of awards, like best screenwriter, best picture. Like I've won some things for my various films. I never ever put it on the film. I just consider that it's like a separate thing, right? It's like I went like it's not the movie. So it just like amazes me how many indie people have 15 different of those little laurels on their movie poster. And it's just like, nah, even when I do win, I'm not going to put it on there. I might share it on Facebook just to get some buzz, but it's just a ridiculous thing.
But it does work for a moviegoer like me. I'm like, at one point, I used to.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, they won 20 fucking indie awards. This has to be great. And then I would pay to see it. I'm like, this is the shittiest thing I've ever seen in my life. What? Who was their competition? Like, but so I just started asking some indie directors, and they told me, nah, you can just buy these awards or some of these awards they just give to you.
Yeah, it's I'd say it's virtually meaningless. I mean, yeah, like winning an Oscar, that means something. There are certain ones where it's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But I've wondered that too, like some of the ones I've entered. And it's just like, oh, we get an email that we won some award. And I'm like, how many people entered? Like, did you even watch the movie or you just pick it at random? Like, you kind of got to wonder. And so I don't take it too seriously. And I don't think making films, it kind of sucks that it has to be about money, but it does. But it, like winning an award, like just saying like my movie is better than this other movie, like, is that really what you're in it for? Like you're kind of, people will like your movie or they will not like it, or they'll like it better or worse than other movies, but that's kind of up for the viewer. It's not like my movie won an award, therefore pick mine over the other one. And now, of course, with indie movie, like everyone has won awards. Like they all have those little symbols. Those
little symbols.
And it's like, okay, well, every movie's an award winner, so being an award winner doesn't mean much. So I'm like, you know what? Mine's going to be the one movie poster that has none of that crap.
It's like every woman has a badge on that says, "I'm a hot chick." Like, then what is a hot chick at that point?
Yeah, and who's deciding?
All right, so I'm gonna tell you about going back. Mine is The Exorcist. I am terrified about this new Exorcist. This fucking thing, it has me fucking cringing. Like, I don't even want to see this shit.
Yeah.
I just know it's gonna be bad.
Yeah, and not only that, but that guy, he signed on for 3 movies.
Yeah, and you see what he did with Halloween.
We saw what he did with Halloween. We basically we're in for the next probably close to 10 years of depending on how long they release it, but it's going to be a while of dealing with these. And yeah, The Exorcist, like I love, it's one of my favorite movies, might be my favorite horror movie. I've read the book many times. Like I love everything about it. And it's like it should be the one that you just leave alone. It's like you don't rewrite Hamlet. It's like you just leave it alone. And as sure enough, you watch the trailer, and, oh, there's not 2 possessed, or there's not 1 possessed girl, there's 2 possessed girls. Because either this guy or someone decided, you know what? people these days they need double what everything is. We need 2 possessed girls, and it's like, like who? Like, oh boy.
I'm like, this is.
And
I've seen the trailers. Like, this looks shit. When I heard that he was making a movie, I was like, this guy just killed. This is the guy who killed the Halloween franchise. Like,
yeah,
you're gonna give him Exorcist now? I'm like, shit.
yeah, I'm not impressed. And like the thing is, what made the first one good was that it was subtle. Like that girl spent most of the movie trapped in that room, strapped to the bed, and it was kind of like, the city keeps running as normal, but in this one house, in this room, man, there's some scary shit going on. And that's what kind of made it tense. And now there's scenes of them walking around, and she's walking through a church, and it's like, is she going to be like blowing up cars with her powers? Like, what? It's like, how far are they going to take it? And it's kind of one of the things where the more you do, like the more CGI special effects you put in there, the worse it's going to be, because I think people don't want to see that in an Exorcist movie. It's fine in an Avengers movie maybe, but like if you try to make it scarier, it's going to be less scary. Like that's kind
People
of the
don't
way
want
it
to
is.
see. People don't want to see CGI in horror. Period.
Yeah, yeah.
Real horror
Well,
fans, we
you watch
hate
Grotesque,
CGI.
we got no CGI in that.
No, that's all practical, man. All
Yeah.
practical.
Yeah, it's I'm gonna watch it probably in the theater, like, and just because I have to, and I'm gonna try to give it the benefit of the doubt. I might be pleasantly surprised, but I kind of am not expecting
Now,
much.
now, here's the thing. It might be like his Halloween reboot or whatever, where the first one was good. But the first one was good,
Yeah.
and it started going downhill. I think that's what's going to be. Oh, this is okay. This is good. And then part 2 and part 3 is just going to tank.
That's possible, but I've heard too that they've been doing a lot. They've had like test screenings that went badly, so they've been like rewriting parts and reshooting parts, which is usually not a good sign.
Yeah.
I'm worried that it's going to start going out the gate absolute shit. And then it's like, oh no, like we have 2 more of these, and maybe the studio will pull the plug and be like, you know what, we're not doing anymore, like scrap it. Like, yeah, when I rarely watch trailers, like I generally don't like trailers, but that one I watched it and I'm like, I know I shouldn't because it's gonna make me mad, but I'm like, fuck it, and then I watched it and I'm like, I shouldn't have watched it, because now, yeah, and as far as I know, I don't think the first one had any cheesy jump scares. And if it did, it was like maybe 1, but I'm pretty sure it's 0. This one, I think there was like more than 1 in the trailer. Like it was just cheap scares where it's like, CGI face. Oh my god, like things like that aren't what should be in an Exorcist movie. Like
it looks like a Conjuring. It looks more like a Conjuring movie than does.
Yeah, exactly. And I wonder if that's whatever that dude's name is, or if that's the studio that the Conjuring's like the biggest horror stuff out there. Make it like the Conjuring, and we'll just call it the Exorcist because the Exorcist is famous. Bam, we can make money. So we got a Conjuring movie about 2 possessed girls that could have had a different title and not been anything to do with the Exorcist, but yeah, you're right. That's one movie that they just they did the prequel movies that were like, yeah, they were like okay, but it's one they've never really been able. Even part 3 was pretty cool, but they've never been able to recapture that, and it's like 50 years old.
You can't.
So it's just like they struck, they bottled lightning in that one movie, that one period of time, and they could have left it as that rather than putting a modern twist on it. And then they're probably going to turn everything up to 11, just like everything's going to be in your face, over the top CGI. And it's, I could be wrong, but that is my views.
You got a movie that is, if you take majority of the country and ask them what is their top 5 favorite horror movies of all time, The Exorcist is in everybody's top 5, if not number 1. So like, don't fuck with something that's already great. I mean,
I have nothing more to say on it. They should just leave it alone. Like, I mean, and it's just kind of like the whole remake thing. Like they're remaking them faster now. It's like, Black Christmas, came out in the 70s. Now there's been what, like 2 or 3 just since 2010. Like
pumping them out, man.
It's just like, don't crank things out with very little forethought, and then people hate it, but people still go to see it for the most part. But sooner or later, I think people are just going to say, fuck it, I don't want to watch this crap anymore. And, you can watch YouTube videos and get the same entertainment. So, like, I'll stop watching shitty movies. And then, you know, things might dry up for a while until we have some new kind of resurgence and everything, and things will be more creative again.
That's one of the reasons I stopped doing reviews on my channels. I was going to the movie theater, seeing every horror movie that was coming out. And I was just like, more so than not, I'm giving bad reviews. I'm wasting my time seeing something that's awful. And before I do these reviews, I would do them unbiased, which means I would not look at the description of the movie. I would not look at the reviews. I would go on a Thursday night, not a Friday opening. I would go on a Thursday night at 9 o'clock and see the movie. And majority of the time, it was just a complete waste of time. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? And I'm sitting here making bad reviews every damn week. And I'm like, watching and interviewing indie movie, I can pick and choose who I interview for the most part, So like, if I watch a movie, I'm like, I like this movie. Let me find Brandon Reines, and let me go ahead and interview him, But with those, like, you don't know what you're getting until you're going in, and now you got a shitty movie, and now you're reviewing a shitty movie every damn night. That's too much.
Yeah, I've almost got, like, I watch a lot of horror movies, and I say, like, horror, I love horror movies. I'm a big horror fan. It's my favorite genre. But sometimes I get to the point, I'm like, do I like horror movies? Because it seems like I don't like any of them. It'll be like 1 out of 10 new ones that I like. And there are still good stuff being made. I'll give it that. But so much of it, it's like, I just don't like it. It's almost like people have forgotten what scary is. And there's some movies, like, say, like, No Country for Old Men. People always talk about how that one scene when Anton Chigurh is talking to the old guy at the gas station, and how, like, insanely intense it was. And that was just two guys talking, no music, no action, two guys talking. And that is, like, people have, discussed that to death, how scary and intense that scene was.
Terrifying.
But they can't move. And that wasn't even a horror movie. It was just like a very slow plotting drama kind of movie. They can't translate that into horror. With horror, it's like in your face, like 1,000 scares a second with that sound stinger, that whatever that sound is, right? Just to make you jump. And it's just like, that's not horror. That's just cranking out crappy content. That's,
Ty West is the only one who's doing it right now in Hollywood when it comes to horror. And that's X and Pearl, that X series. Even I seen a movie last year. It was called Barbarian. That movie was great. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah, that is on my list to watch. Everyone's telling me to watch.
Oh, it's amazing. And that's one of the movies I went in to do a review. I went in blind. I didn't know what the movie was about. And it's like, whoa, what the fuck am I watching? Like, it's so damn good. I put that as my second best horror movie last year. It was right behind X. Have you seen X?
No, not yet.
Oh, you got to see X. That was the best horror movie last year. Yeah, 100%. You got to see X.
Done. I will.
Yeah, because you got to see X and you got to see Pearl, because Part 3 is coming out this year. So, got to check that out.
Yeah, there are a lot of there's a lot of potential in it, and I think a lot of the good horror people are probably being buried under all the studio stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that it's like 98% Hollywood studio horror, and then the other 2% are kind of fighting over the scraps. But it's like, even I know what it's like. It's hard to be noticed when you're just one of a million movies on Tubi, and it's hard to get people to watch. Where it's like, people might like my movie better than the Hollywood movie, but they're just never going to see it because the other movies just dominate the recommended section. And of course, as soon as you're in Hollywood, it's like you have to make the money, which means you have to make it like the other things that are making money. And even like I do, I make my living as a screenwriter, and I get that a lot where, I'll get hired to write a movie, and they want it to be really like this other movie that made money. Can't be my original creation. I want to do something different, but no, man, make it like whatever the last famous movie was. And it's like, okay, I need to pay check, so I'll do it. But it's like, now this thing's going to get made, and it's not going to be very good, and it's not going to be original. But then someone else will do something original, and now everyone's copying that. Where it's like, why don't you try to make the original thing? But yeah, and maybe, I don't know, maybe the whole studio system is messed up or something. But I kind of like, at least now people have the ability to make movies, because if you lived in the 1950s, like a normal person couldn't even probably afford a video camera, like a film camera, let alone make a movie. Like it just didn't really exist. Kind of wasn't until the 70s where, you know, people could get together and buy a cheap camera and kind of make a film. Now, you know, people walk around with a video camera. So it's a lot easier for people to do stuff. But of course, the downside is a lot more people are doing stuff and it's not all good. So I don't think I'm in competition with other people making movies. I'm just in competition with the sheer volume of stuff out there.
And
Because
it's
not only is there movies and TV shows, there's just YouTube channels. There's people doing reviews. There is
mm-hmm.
it's like, man, how do you get people to take an hour and hour and a half of the time out of their day to watch my particular movie? And things when they do, they generally like it. But just kind of getting people to even put their eyeballs on it is a struggle. So it's and this the fact that you got someone making a shitty Exorcist movie that's probably, no matter how bad it is gonna it's gonna make
hundreds
more
of millions
money
of dollars
than I ever will. And it's like, you know,
but that's why I switched the format of my show, because I was doing reviews. But you know how many fucking motherfuckers on YouTube or doing horror movie reviews? Thousands.
Yeah.
Thousands. And each one, I mean, there's some good ones, but majority of them are generic. And so I was like, what's one thing no one's doing? I've always been an indie horror fan. You know, I grew up on Full Moon movies, Trauma, all that stuff. So I've always been a indie horror movie fan. Some of my favorite horror movies are indie horror movies. I was like, how come? So no one is spotlighting indie horror movies. I'm gonna do that, and I'm the indie horror movie guy.
Yeah. Yeah, why not? Something different. There's a lot of stuff out there, and I think people kind of like finding that kind of diamond in the rough, or whatever you call it. Just like it's like everyone knows The Exorcist is coming out, but finding some movie that no one's ever heard of, it's kind of like it's your thing, right? It's like, man, I watched this thing, it's cool. Only this very small group of people, and then when you run into someone else that likes it, it's like, oh, you like that too, man? Like we're kind of like part of a small club.
It's like X. I anytime I talk to somebody, most people are like, I never heard of X. I was like, you never heard of Pearl either? There's a commercial about it. No. But when I run into somebody and say X, they're like, yeah, X Pearl, greatest horror movie series. Maybe the greatest horror movie series ever made, if the third one is even somewhat as good as the first two. Just amazing. Ty West. But I'm telling you right now, speaking of a small indie horror studio, A24, I don't know if you've heard of them. They are pushing out great horror movies. They're pushing out good stuff. I mean, they're better than New Line and all that crap. They're pushing out some great movies. If you see A24 and you see a horror movie and it's indie, there's one I want to watch. It's about a girl and a guy who are cannibals or something like that. All in the Bones or something like that. It's on Amazon right now streaming. I wanted to see it in theaters. I'm gonna check that out because I hear that is fantastic. But A24 is pumping out some good horror flicks, indie horror flicks.
Yeah, there are occasionally some that still surprise me to this day. I think a lot of horror fans kind of maybe share our kind of opinion that horror kind of sucks these days, which partly is true, but it's not all true. Like there's still good stuff coming out. I don't want to be some like old guy who just complains that it's not the 80s anymore. There are a lot. I mean, like Hereditary is probably one of the best horror movies ever, and that's fairly new. There are still new things coming out, and once in a while I'll get a surprise. Sometimes it's a new thing that a popular movie that I like. Sometimes it's something that I've never heard of. It's like, I've never heard of this. I'll watch it. And it's like, that was fucking good.
Barbarian.
So it still exists. So I do have hope, and there are people still love good things, like especially now that everyone kind of has a voice on social media. Things that suck tend to just get destroyed.
Yeah.
But there are things that maybe would never have had a chance that somehow get lifted up because few people start talking about it, it starts spreading, and then someone gets an opportunity that they never would have had before because people start talking about their movies. So there's a lot of room for good movies to come out, and I think there's going to be a lot more in the future, I hope. Unless Exorcist completely kills the horror genre, but
it will. No, I think it's going to be a combination of Exorcist and the last Scream movie. I think that's going to kill horror for quite a bit.
And maybe it needs to kind of, it seems like every once in a while, kind of like late 80s, it just kind of died out and went away until the 90s again. maybe that'll happen, and maybe that's a good thing, right?
Hmm.
I mean, it might be good for me if everyone else just kind of stops it, but I'm the only one who keeps doing it. It might benefit me, but it just sometimes maybe things just need a break because like horror has like a bigger, like a more dedicated fan base than any other genre. Like
Hmm.
you don't hear like drama fans or comedy fans. Like there are movies that are popular, but horror people, it's like we have our own community, and it's a big community
We have
that are just
conventions.
fanatical about it because
Yeah,
their movies are awesome.
yeah. We have our own conventions in every
Yeah.
city and every state and every country. I mean, we are, but I think it's going to be, we're about to witness the the death of horror for the next for foreseeable future because the Nun 2 is coming out, followed by Saw 10. Both of them will be garbage, and that's going to lead into The Exorcist and the final Scream movie. I think is going to be the killer for big name
That
horror for a while.
yeah, I cannot say that's wrong. That is quite
That's
quite likely. Yeah, there'll be like little things that come out, but it
yeah.
might because I think even like the whole like big budget studio horror, like it's not a like a it hasn't been around. It's not like other movies where they've been around for 100 years. Usually studios, I think, kind of shied away from a lot of the super big budget ones. Like in the 80s, like all those Freddy Jason movies, those were made by like smaller companies. They weren't like Paramount and that
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. I could be wrong about this, but it just seems that it's kind of a newer thing where they're like, holy shit, there's a lot of horror fans. Let's take advantage of them by cranking out garbage because we know they'll watch it, but we'll make it shitty and then they'll hate it. And it's just kind of like they're basically abusing our interest in their product. It's kind of like a big music company finding what genre music's popular and then just milking the crap out of it and ruining it. And then it's like it's not what it used to be. So I kind of like horror to be underground. I
Yeah.
kind of like it when it was edgy. It wasn't like on the same level as Disney. It wasn't you kind of I even miss the days where it was like almost evil to watch it, right? Where you get in
I
trouble
don't
from your
like
parents
kids
for
watching
watching
it.
it.
Yeah,
It's
it takes away. We see kids dress up like Michael Myers. It
yeah,
kind of takes away like a 5 year old. I mean, I got so much shit about saying that I don't like little kids at horror conventions. I got so much shit for saying that. But like, why are they there? When I say little kids 5 and under, like, why you? Anyway, but yeah, I mean, if you look at Nightmare on Elm Street, you look at Halloween, you look at Friday the 13th, 80% of those, if you look at those series, 80% of those movies were garbage.
yeah,
They just found success on the first two and just ran with it and just pumped out garbage for the next 10, 15 years.
to a point, but it was also like they were bad, but they were still made with some level of like love and care that I still like them, even the bad ones. Whereas now they're like heartless. So it's like if you're gonna be a bad movie, but you didn't even try, like you just put money into it, and it's like you didn't even care about it. That's even worse. Like the worst Jason movie, I still like watching. I almost like watching it because it's kind of crappy. It just has like something about it. But it's like, yeah, most of them they're not good, but there's just something about them where it's like they just kind of have this like special place in my heart. Whereas now it's like a soulless corporation made a movie by committee by studying what the most famous, like the best parts of other movies are to maximize their profits. And it's like, well, now if it sucks, it's like, fuck you. Like you had the means to make it and you ruined it. Whereas just like a bunch of like horror fans trying to make a movie with a very limited budget, it's
Yeah.
like I'll let you get away with everything. This kind of sucked, but you guys tried hard and I laughed a lot, so I'm gonna like it. Whereas now that doesn't happen anymore. Now it's just like, yeah, like the new Nightmare on Elm Street. It's like, what the hell was that? It was so dull and lifeless. It's like, why would they make that? Like people trash talk the wisecracking Freddy. At least it was entertaining. At least there
He's
was
entertaining.
stuff in there that I like watching.
Favorite character. He's my favorite character, but I'm Freddy had a lot of bad movies,
Yeah,
especially I would say after part four, it just went. You can tell it was a cash grab after that
yeah,
point. They were just pumping out Nightmare on Elm Street movies, just for a cash grab. It's same thing with Friday the 13th. After Jason's lives, you could just tell with Mad Haddon and Jason Go to Hell, they were and Jason X, they were just pumping out just for cash grabs.
yeah.
And it's not fun when you see, you know, like Jason Goes to Manhattan had a huge budget. It was the highest budgeted Friday the 13th movie. I think it had like 13 million, $20 million budget, and it was a piece of to me it was the worst movie in the franchise. And to have the highest budget, I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of like it just seems I can't really think of any series where that goes past 5, 6 movies where the newer ones are better than the old.
Never.
It just never, and that's why right now like yeah we'll crank out a few Grotesque movies over 5 years. I couldn't imagine what it'd be like if someone like some bigger company bought it and then they started they gave it to someone else. Like they would ruin it. It would probably they'd crank out a bunch, they'd get super shitty, and then it would die for like 5 years, and someone else will come back and we're gonna go back to the basics, and they'd reboot it, and it may or may not be good, but it would never be the same
It'd be 20
as
gross.
the original ones. And it's just something about like a lot of bands are like that too with music, right? It's like you start off, but if your career gets too long, it's never as good as it was when you were kind of hungry for it,
Mm-hmm.
when it's just like it comes from a different place. Like if I became mega rich and I could do whatever I want, I think my movies would suffer.
Yeah.
They would probably look better, they would like sound better, probably have more famous actors, but they just people would probably hate them and they would wish that I would go back to making stuff I did now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like there's just something about having to like struggle and having limited resources makes things better. And even the first Exorcist, like yeah, it was a pretty big budget thing, but they were limited by their technology. They couldn't even do the spider walk thing. They had to cut that because they didn't have the technology to like cut the cables out of the shot.
Yeah.
But they made a damn good movie. Now we have the technology and like to do anything, and somehow movies are less creative and worse. So I think just struggling, and even with Grotesque, there's parts where like we could probably do this like CGI, like pay someone to do it, but that's it's not as good. We're gonna do it. We did like a little bit of green screen stuff, but we're even gonna make it look kind of crappy if we have to, just because some of it people like laugh. Like in the first one where she like bashes the waitress's face in, that looked kind of not very good. But we got a lot of laughs, but we also got a lot of horrific in the theater. There was a lot of horrific, like, oh my God, because it's kind of brutal, but
I
it doesn't
definitely,
look real.
I mean, I definitely got that when she had the big drill bit going through the guy's head. It looked like a potato head, but it was like, at the same time. So listen, I like practical effects. It gives me more of a, it freaks me out more than it does the CGI stuff. And that's why Dead, Evil Dead Rising, I liked it, but the CGI blood was just like, it was just so much of it, and it looked so fake, and you can tell it's just. I like Evil Dead movies. Evil Dead movies were practical blood,
Yeah,
practical effects.
yeah, it's just like a shortcut, and it's like, well, we could do it, but they can never get the blood right. And same with like gunshots where they add the fake like muzzle flash in CGI. Even on like big budget movies, it just never quite looks real enough. It just takes me out of it for a bit because it looks fake. And yeah, if it's CGI blood, there was a little bit in Grotesque, the part where during the montage, I remember like the one woman like looks over the edge of the bed and Mildred's like under her bed and
Oh
like
yeah.
cuts her throat. Um, we tried to do practical, but of course the person's house we were shooting in didn't want blood on their carpet, so we're like, okay, well we'll just use CGI. So that little bit of blood you see is CGI. That might be the only one in the entire movie. Um, but yeah, like I'd rather see a bad practical effect than a good CGI effect. There's
Me
something about it that's like it's more real. It's like I don't know, it just
pretty.
yeah. Like there's a lot of old movies from decades past that the effects look pretty crummy compared to nowadays, but they're still good. Like I still kind of like them for that. It's like they make the story and they did the best with what they have. And it's kind of like going to see a play like at a theater. There's a lot of like theater fans out there, and it's obvious that that's not a real forest. That's just painted onto a backdrop.
Exactly.
But you use your imagination. You just pretend it's real, and then you just watch the story, get some enjoyment out of it. So, like, I think maybe even the new Evil Dead might have benefited from having little to, no blood. It might have even been better than over the top CGI blood because it just kind of bugs me and it takes me out of the story. I try to ignore it, but I don't know.
Especially as a lifelong Evil Dead fan, where
Yeah,
it's all practical and like now we get this CGI.
it's what
It's a
made those guys' career. It's like, yeah, these young guys made this movie. It was really hard to do, and they did insane things with their limited resources, and that's what made those movies and those guys famous. So now
hmm
they're gonna continue that series by going exactly against everything they did to start it out, and
yeah.
it's like, yeah, the movie it's okay, it's pretty good, but it's not the same.
That's why when that movie came out, I saw in the movie today, and everybody was saying, "Oh my god, it's the greatest horror movie ever made." I was like, "Is it though?" I'm like, "It's okay," but I mean, this is not the greatest. It's not even the greatest Evil Dead movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it could come down to personal opinion. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that just love that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm not trying to bash movies anyone like, but yeah, it's mostly my personal taste.
Now, speaking of remakes, the Evil Dead remake that was pretty damn good. I like that one.
I did. I liked it was different. It wasn't like
hmm
Evil Dead 1 and 3. I was expecting not to like it. I was really expecting not to like it, but when it was done, I was like, yeah, that was actually like it was different, but like yeah, it was very well done. I was happy.
Yeah, so I was excited about it. I'm an Evil Dead fan. I was excited about Evil Dead Rise. I was like, that was okay. I mean, I didn't understand where all the hoopla was coming from. It was good. Not as good as the last one, but it was good. You know.
Yeah, and I find that a lot too. Just with I'm sure a lot of horror fans find that where even the better ones are kind of that. Yeah, it was good. I miss it when it's like, holy shit, that was like freaking awesome. Um, that happens so rarely anymore.
hmm
And movies just they tend to like not have that attitude of say like Return of the Living Dead, where it just has this weird kind of vibe and style to it of its own, where it's just like everything about this movie is in its own little bubble, and
hmm
it's awesome. Now it's kind of like everything's kind of the same, and it's like yeah, it's well made and it's good, but I can't imagine myself watching the new Evil Dead movie like 20 times in my life.
No.
Honestly, I'll probably never watch it again
I
unless it's
probably
with
won't watch that.
somebody.
I mean, I've seen people say, "Oh, I watched the movie," and I just bought the DVD. I'm like, okay, that's good for you. Like, I wouldn't. It's not one of those movies. It's like people are probably getting tired of me bashing Terrifier. Terrifier 2 was way better than part one. I didn't like part one. Terrifier 2 was a okay movie. I would never watch it again though.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I would
I,
never
I
watch it again.
I liked it. It was freaking gory as hell. If you're into gore,
Gory as
that they
hell.
took it to a whole new level.
Yes.
But yeah, I'd probably never watch it again. It's like,
hmm
and that's the funny thing too, like about Grotesque, my film, is like a lot of people tell me like they've watched it like over and over again because it's so easy to watch. Like Terrifier was heavy. It's a heavy movie.
It's
It's a
heavy,
lot to
heavy.
sit through. Grotesque is so light. There's kind of a lot deeper stuff to it, maybe if you're into that. But it's such an easy, fun movie to watch that it's like just watch it again. So like I've had a lot of people that are like, I've watched it like 12 times and I'm noticing other little things in there, and it's.
But I mean, I caught myself laughing a couple times
Yeah,
during her movie, and I like that aspect.
yeah, it was funny in the like the at the premiere because I'm pretty sure that I'd shown like short horror films on a screen at festivals, but that was the first time where I had anything like a horror film because my last movie was Hot Box, like a stoner comedy. So I wasn't sure what I was in for
hmm
because part of it is freaking hilarious, like it's very ridiculous movie, but there's some brutal violence and some very harsh things that could
Yeah.
offend a lot of people. We actually had one guy like walk out of the theater because he was like couldn't take it. Um, so I was like, what are we gonna expect? And yeah, we got a lot of laughs. Like people laughed at every freaking joke. People laughed at things that I didn't even mean to be funny. But we were like downright we got a lot of shock. Like back to that part where she kills the waitress with the tire iron. The first part of it, like the car is blocking what she's doing. You just see her swinging, and everyone was horrified by that part. We hadn't even cut to the actual gore yet, but everyone was like, "Ah!" And I was like, "What the hell?" Like they're reacting to, and then of course then it shows like her smashed skull, and everyone's like, "Oh!" And it's like, okay, so people
and
reacted to it, and yeah, that drill where she drills that guy's head you
yeah,
mentioned, I
there was a
posted
couple
that on
scenes.
Facebook, and freaking people were like calling me a criminal and I should be like in jail and stuff. And it's like, it's not real. Like, no one was hurt. It was a styrofoam head sitting on a friggin' broomstick. Like, it wasn't, but there's something about it that people got the right reaction. I was worried no one would get it. I was worried that horror fans would hate it because it's funny and comedy fans would find it funny because it's violent. But somehow I just hit that right mark and people loved it. And yeah.
And for any man out there, there's 2 scenes in that movie that's going to make you cringe.
Yeah. And I'll just say that it's going to be the same in part 2. But I will add a little bit that Dr. Wash does return. Oh. And let's just say he's redeemed somehow.
Okay.
Anyone who's watched the movie will know what I'm talking about. If you haven't.
Well, Brandon, how may everyone find you?
I'm on Facebook and Twitter, or X, whatever it's called now, and Instagram. If you just search for my name, my company's Higher Universe. So if you look up Higher Universe pictures on YouTube, you'll find my channel has all our movies and other stuff on there. We actually just released a kind of like a behind the scenes video from Grotesque 2. Nice. So if you watch that, it's like a 2-minute video that we hadn't made. So you'll get to see kind of what's happening as part 2 is being made, and you'll get some kind of insight into that. And yeah, feel free to reach out. And I got comic books and novels that I've written that are available on Amazon if you search my name. And yeah, so feel free to reach out and watch my stuff if you like it, and let me know what you think, good or bad.
Awesome. Well, everyone, hop on Tubi and watch Grotesque. And I Am Haunted. They're streaming right now, free. And look out for Grotesque 2 and I Am Haunted 2 coming out in the near future. Brandon, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on a Horror Run, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This was great. Great chat. And yeah, maybe after Grotesque 2 comes, maybe you can have me back and we can discuss your thoughts on that one.
100%. 100%. You read my mind. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce. You take care.